let's take it back to Trump's comments that he made in his address. We already talked a little bit about how he sort of overstated what would be offered to citizens. He said that copays would be waived for treatment that was inaccurate. Copays are only being waived for screening. So it'll be cheap for you to find out if you have this particular illness. Good luck if you've got it. But more than that, Trump's coronavirus address, Trump's Covfefe 19 address.
You ruined it.
I ruined it all.
We've said it enough times, I think we can say it at this point.
Yeah. Is full of ignorance and xenophobia and helplessness. He appeared almost like stunned, like he didn't know if this was going to go over well. And more than just his inaccurate statements about public health or about how public health would be addressed, he made some unclear statements about how he would, what the actual response would be when it comes to public health. But more than that, he seemed to focus almost exclusively on markets and business, how he's going to maintain trade and keep incoming goods into the country, and how there would be, he did actually mention how much money would be spent and how it would be spent to ensure that small businesses would be able to weather the storm of, workers that would have to take time off. Nothing about the workers that had to take time off and the income that they would be losing out on. None of that. Nothing about the public health, but just got to make sure the businesses, they can be financially solvent because their workers can't come to work. So that seemed to be the main thing he focused on. There was a lot of self-aggrandizing and telling people all the great things and how it's unprecedented. He had the greatest response to this global crisis of any country in the world. A lot of patting himself on the back and how great it was, while the rest of the world is looking at it going, that's disgraceful. America's response to this is laughable, lacking. So earlier in the week, a visibly distraught World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom.
Tedros is a very interesting name.
Yeah. Warned that a moral decay was taking hold in capitals throughout the world, shocked at the seeming rapidity at which governments were giving up on any serious efforts to contain the disease, which he attributed to its disimportant effect on the elderly. Adhanom insisted that, quote, any individual, whatever age, any human being matters. He stated, whether it kills a young person or an old person or a senior citizen, any country has an obligation to save that person. So that's why we're saying no white flag. We don't give up. We fight. To protect our children, to protect our senior citizens. At the end of the day, it's a human life. We cannot say we care about millions when we don't care about an individual person. Angela Merkel came under fire the day before President Trump had his address. She told a dumbstruck group of lawmakers that she expects 60 to 70% of the German population to become infected by the deadly disease. Merkel's declaration was less of a statement of fact than of policy. She was saying, in effect, that no serious measures would be taken to prevent the outbreak from becoming a mass casualty event in her country. This is essentially what Trump has said. Right? He's not offering anything to people, to any details about infrastructure, about making this better for people. It seems to almost laser focus on how do we make sure that the markets are good? How do we make sure that companies are going to make term up? Oh, don't worry, you'll keep your money coming in. It's like that shouldn't be anyone's top concern.
So there's two factors on this. First of all, from the market point of view, I mean, they're about to get demolished, because I was actually listening to some of the market people talk about how terrified they are of how this is going to play out. And they were basically saying this is a combination of the dot-com bubble and the 2008 crash put together. Because it's like stagflation almost, because what is and this is going to last for 3 to 6 months, by the way. Again, we're just starting it, and Merkel's right, Trump are right in that one part that it's too late. It's out. It's going to affect over half the world population. The question really is how quickly. That's the only distinction. Is it going to happen very quickly and overwhelm hospital services and cause more deaths, or is it going to last longer and hurt the markets more? And they seem to be going with some old people can die. Well, the markets are important, especially Trump, even though he himself is a old person. So the reason that this is happening is twofold. First of all, you have the supply side of the economy, which is like, for example, we already talked about this. China's closing factories. Everything's closing down. And everything is made today. The way the modern economy works is I only make just enough supplies to be used for that specific day, and my production is set for that kind of a purpose. And the stores are always like, like Walmart's an example of this. Like the second they run out of stock, they already have a new item in, but they only had the much. There are no spares. There are no backups. So a number of medical supplies that would otherwise should be stockpiled just aren't, because they're like, yeah, we'll just order it and it'll be fine. But it's hard when you need an amount of either whatever medicine or thing that they need that are now on a 1.5-year back order because the supply chain was never meant for them. There are no stockpiles anywhere. So on that end, you also have, again, especially China and other manufacturing and things of that nature, travel's completely shutting down everywhere. That's a huge industry worldwide. That's hotels. I mean, that's like, I think, like a $9 trillion part of the world economy or something enormous of that nature. Those are all shutting down because of this. So they're not making the supplies that they need. And a lot of this economy is going down, which is going to cause a huge... I mean, we're about to watch as just everyone gets laid off all over the planet all at once for the most part. And at the same time that's happening, everyone's being told, stay inside, don't go anywhere, don't go where people are. You know where people are? Stores, restaurants, events. NBA shut down. That's a huge cost to the economy. So simultaneously, the supply side of the economy is shutting down at the exact same time as the demand side of the economy doesn't want to buy anything except apparently 15 rolls of toilet paper at the same time in a big bundle at Costco or something like that. So this is what this is going to do. It's going to lead to millions of people being laid off as a result. And that, of course, is going to lower demand even more because less people have money to work. So if they have less money to work, they're going to have less demand. So if there's less demand, then there's no need for have more supply. So if there's no supply, then you're going to lay people off, which is then going to cause demand to go down, which is then going to cause supply to go down, which is cause people to lay off. And you can see this vicious circle that's about to happen. All at the same time, oil prices are dropping and cratering. So I got to say, we've been saying that something was going to happen with a stock market crash all last year, and it's going to be worse than '08. Here it is.
What we're looking at here is a lack of compassion from the Trump administration, but also a lack of compassion from the political establishment, because this didn't start with Trump. I know everyone's going to be blaming him, and he's an incompetent leader, but this system was put in place 40 years ago. It was the start of the Reagan administration, followed by Bush Sr., followed by Bill Clinton, followed by Bush Jr., and then followed by, oh, surprise, surprise, Barack Obama, who in 2008 was supposed to fix it all. But no, we still don't have single-payer health care. We don't have any of these issues. And Trump, just the way he is handling this, the way he is speaking towards people, it's not installing confidence. And just a quick side note, you mentioned Costco. I was at my local Costco. Places, areas that I never would expect to see empty are empty. And I used to work there for like 5 years. Never in my life have I ever seen that. It was a wonder. Like, wow.
If this is your first pandemic, type 1 in the comments.
It should be everyone's, probably.
Oh,
My-
we have some older gentlemen and ladies in the chat.
Well, my grandpa, this was he said, no, I went through something like this in the 30s,
So,
he said,
maybe.
you know what he said to me? He said, pal, it's going to get a lot worse. And so there
And
we
then
go.
the other part of this is as well is that what we usually deal with pandemics, it's actually very interesting how it also kind of dovetails with like successful civil rights movements. You have your peaceful group, and then you have your more violent militant group. Usually you have a safer strain of the virus, and then you have a much more virulent and deadly version of it. So surprises for the future, everyone.
Yeah.
Great. I did want to point out the other sort of major tones of Trump's address were almost explicitly xenophobic, right? The U.S. government, and Trump in particular, waste no opportunity to vilify China, those communists. This article points out that Trump treated the pandemic as though it was a foreign invasion. He described the disease as a foreign virus that started in China and announced that unprecedented travel restrictions banning all non-citizens traveling from Europe to the United States. So it was very much like treated it as like we're strong military things, and it's like this has nothing to do with an invasion. to characterize it, to explicitly call it a foreign virus and point out it started in China is a way of vilifying a foreign country that the World Health Organization has consistently lauded as having had excellent responses to this outbreak. And really, they're worth giving a lot of praise to, at least doing a lot of work to abate the spread of it. Not that it was really possible to completely stop it. But I think China's efforts are really worth applauding.
So I want to make a quick comment I saw from the chat talking about the Spanish flu. They're asking, well, how do people survive the Spanish flu? Well, 2% of people didn't. And the Spanish flu killed 100 million people, more than World War I and World War II combined. And this disease that we are seeing, and that I've seen experts talk about, how it's either going to be, at best, 10 times deadlier than a flu season, which is 500 million people dead in the U.S., or at 2%, which again is Spanish flu. Now, the difference between the Spanish flu and Corona is, well, obviously one's a beer and one's, no, I'm just joking. One of them went after people in their prime of life, their youth, because it caused an overreaction in the immune system, whereas Corona is hitting what viruses usually hit, people with health issues, young people, and old people, but especially old people. And actually, I take that back. Young people are like seemingly like entirely immune from it, which is very odd. They're carrying it.
Yeah,
but they're not catching it.
We all have it.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, and another thing too is that
We gotta get like I survived Covfefe 19 shirts.
Covfefe 91.
91.
So
Why don't you like 19?
well, look, we changed it the first thing, and just
We're gonna say
switch
both.
the name.
We're gonna
Yeah.
say coronavirus and Covfefe 91, so people get extra confused.
So there we go. Real quick though, it's just there's one thing to point out too. The difference between the Spanish flu and Covfefe 91 is that we are a much more global society.
And people are generally healthier in the Western world.
Except in the U.S.
Well, I mean, except for the obesity and the smoke, and the smoking was still there, but okay, I take that back. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, but we're in a much more global society now, and especially here in the United States, where going to the hospital costs an arm and a leg in this country, and our hospitals are not built for something like this. I don't think we are not prepared for something like this.
It's crazy
so a lot of people will get hurt. Plus, adding on to the markets crashing, adding on the fact that people won't have jobs, adding on the fact that people won't be able to pay for their insurances, adding on to the fact that there's going to be a huge crisis, and plus, it's going to be spring and summer. Who knows if there's going to be another California wildfire or another super hurricane coming as very soon, the threat of climate change. And as always, I'm sorry to say this, viruses adapt and mutate and change. And for all we know, it could become more aggressive.
And did I say 500 million deaths in the U.S. earlier?
Oh.
Yeah, that would be.
If I did, if I said that,
You did a Biden. 150 million people died because of gun violence.
remove 3 zeros and you get the
500,000?
500,000 is
Yes.
the correct number.
Yes, that would be
Yeah.
3 zeros.
Don't worry. The
No, the virus is fine with accounting. It'll take the population, then it will wait for more to come in, and then it will get exactly 180 million more later. That's how it
It
works.
has an actuary's license.
Okay, hold on. So Miguel H is asking if viruses are living organisms. The answer is no, but they do go through series of changes.
They
do-
basically insert themselves into living organisms
And then change.
replicate. Basically, all that this thing is doing effectively in your body is it's highly contagious. It gets into your body and it goes into cells, gets the cells to start reproducing. It's basically foreign RNA that has a capsule around it.
Yep.
That's basically what a virus is. So it goes in your cell and injects its own virus. It's like a pirate, and then
Yeah.
it will take over. It'll get the cell to replicate.
more of it.
Thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of extra pieces of RNA. Then eventually it'll blow up the cell, and then that'll spread to the rest of your cells, and you're sick.
And also,
Yar.
not to mention, too, it can mutate along the way, too, because it's
Yeah.
an organism. So that's how things change, mutate, and evolve. We here at Heartlands Media support and love science. We like science.
But we are not doctors.
No, we're not doctors.
Doctor of Fine Arts.
We're not. None of this constitutes medical advice.
No.